Alex, it's amazing to have you here with me today.
Thanks, Dale.
Excited to have you. We've known each other for a while, and actually, before you give us I'd love an intro. Like, why are we talking? How did you get to where you are running this pool services company? And you'd reminded me of a conversation we had earlier, which we actually probably shouldn't call out completely to keep everybody anonymous. But when you were in college, I ran a little mastermind group with you and five of your buddies, and we got to know each other really well. And you told me that I gave you some really candid advice
Yeah.
that made me laugh. But
Yeah, no, it was great. I've always been that guy that's probably a little too black and white about everything. So I thought it was funny I was in this situation, but yeah, I was working during college and with a company not too far from campus. And anyways, long story short, it was an entrepreneur I really looked up to. And I started noticing there were a lot of gray areas there. And of course, if you think black and white, that'll make you go crazy. So you start to think, well, maybe it's just a little bit of my OCD, we've all, someone's got a little bit of that. But, as time went on, it became clear that there were some probably moral or ethical boundaries 100% that were being crossed. And at the same time, I was supposed to, well, become one of their, you know, third guy, I guess you could say, in the company, which would have been great. And I was telling Dale this that I'm struggling with this, and I think I told him this two or three times. Dale has been kind of mentor me for a long time. Dale is like a ethics mentor. If you come to him with an ethics problem, he will help you solve it. And it may be that the problem isn't really a problem, and I'll help you see that. But
anybody
in
that
this
I've
case,
lied to or cheated in the past,
correct.
come call me
Absolutely.
offline. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
They can comment in the comment section. And long story short, yeah, he just said, look, Alex, finally he got to the point. He says, I think he had enough information. He says, Alex, you don't stop talking to this guy, we're not having another call with you. Or if you don't leave your job right now, you're not going to have, I'm going to have another call with you. And I'm like, oh man, this is my income. I put so much into this. And at the time, what was really interesting is I had this church calling and it was really busy. I was busy almost every night doing stuff. And I remember I'd be like going out feeling so good, and then I'd go to work. And it was not the same feeling. Something was off. And I finally wrote my boss, said, hey, I'm done, and they wrote me back. And I think that what may have been my last day. They wanted to have one exit meeting. And anyways, it was the best thing because at that moment, right after, it was like all of these things that I thought were actually causing me turmoil, everything was aligned, and I felt like I was finally doing the right thing at work and at home. And ironically, I noticed within a few weeks there were some things in my personal life that became ambiguous that normally aren't. And immediately those also shaped up. Like everything was finally aligned toward no, we're going to be honest, we're going to do ethical things. So uh, always grateful for Dale because I don't think there's been any looking back from that. That's been
Well,
that
and
that was a good lesson.
let me chime in there a little bit too, and then we'll get to your intro. I'm great at asking two confusing questions in a row, but so the thing talking about alignment and independent, even if they weren't doing anything wrong and right, it's like who knows, and maybe, but I remember, yeah, there was that big conflict for you of, and I think in entrepreneurship and in life, I've been so blessed by finding alignment. And when I'm not aligned, you're just not feeling, you don't get that same feeling of being alive and running and winning and whatever. Even if you're not even winning doing the thing, there's plenty of alignment in a hard battle that gives you no dopamine hits or no wins, right? But there's
Hmm.
still alignment. I need to be doing this. This is what we're doing, even though I'm not winning yet or whatever. And that's just, it's so powerful to be aligned and find alignment. So I think that's where, as I was seeing, and it was probably um, as I was seeing that, I'm like, there's probably not alignment there. So let's never
Yeah,
talk again
no,
if you do that. That's probably a pretty toxic thing
absolutely.
for me to say, but
No, and you're exactly right. the longer that I do entrepreneurship, the more I see like, oh, there are some gray area things, and there's some really hard decisions you have to make sometimes. And looking back, I think I give people a lot more compassion. Now as, oh, there were some hard decisions that had to be made, and I would not have made it like you did. But it's a little different now looking back, but still same principle.
I real quick, I sold online in 2005. So it very much was the Wild West, and you were dancing in the gray, bending policies
Yeah.
every single day.
Uh-huh.
A brand would say, "You can buy our stuff, but you can't discount it," and you sign an agreement to say that you won't discount. But then everyone discounts it,
Hmm.
and we internally would have a system that said, is this MAP, minimum advertised price? Is it MAP? Is it super MAP, meaning don't mess up? Or
Yep.
it's MAP kind of, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like we had all these classifications but in a black and white world, it was very hard. And when you're in the middle of that, it does become complicated. It's more like, no,
Yeah.
just be honest. They're like, oh no, just you always do the right thing, ethics, whatever. And it's like, yeah, but a lot of times it is tricky.
It is.
And one of the things that I use is if I were to talk to the three people that I really admire, who I trust their judgment, and I were to lay out that dilemma with them, what are they going to tell me? And, that helps me kind of weed through, or navigate some of these things pretty well,
I like
um,
that.
because it can be hard.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Just think about three people you might that you look up to run that pass. I think it's a great way mental exercise.
So, love it. Give us the intro. What do you do? How did you get here?
Nice. Yeah, so I'm Alex, and I've loved entrepreneurship since I was 6. When I was 6, I asked my dad how Kmart made money, and he said they buy in bulk, and then they sell at higher prices because I got this cheap price at bulk individual units. So I went up to our local grocery store and bought a big pack of Fun Dip, and then I brought it outside and set up a shop, and I got my neighbor to give me his piggy bank and all the entire piggy bank for one Fun Dip. And I just remember his mom, just big red hair, just stomping down the driveway like his grandfather gave him that. And I don't think I even felt bad about it. I did quite the change back then, so I was feeling pretty good. And I think when I was 7, I got a cash register for my birthday, and then I sold it to my next door neighbor for some real cash for her garage sale. And so and when I was 13, I sold a car, and then 15, I bought and sold a car. So I started doing that, and then I did a lawn care business and hired my brothers, and they were troopers. Those guys were working for like $5 an hour. I mean, violating all OSHA requirements, at 7 years old. And so we had them out lawn mowing. I'd drop them off, and then I'd go to work at the same time. So I was like trying to make some money from that, from them working, and then I'd go and do my real job. So you could see how profitable my lawn mowing business was. And I had printed a bunch of signs, put them all over town, and then I didn't realize that in really small towns, it's more about who you know rather than that they see a sign. Uh, so that business didn't, I made a little bit of money, but that was about it. And then I did a car detailing business, and that helped fund my mission too. So that was a
Hmm.
good time. And after I got home, I started learning about Amazon and met my good friend Dale. And I decided to start a business selling letterboards, like felt letterboards. And that was a good time. Dale and I looked at it. I had access to this data software, and everything showed good stuff. And wouldn't you know that while they had just shipped it, it had just left the port, the largest Amazon launch company in the business with tons of Amazon sellers following it, did their 2019 launch strategy on how to launch none other than our product. And so it just tanked. It was, I mean, and then I hired a launch company, and they messed up how they were supposed to do it and gave away a bunch of letterboards for free in the middle of the launch, like they were supposed to, but it was supposed to be sequential because I launched products, and they just totally botched it. And we were pretty much dead in the water. And by the time we could, so then the last thing to recover that business would have been advertising. And because everybody else started selling felt letterboards, our cost of advertising shot up. We made absolutely no money, and we sold it off. And Dale lost some money. Big apologies.
But
And
I think at the end of the day, we still recovered three. I think it was 8,000
35.
bucks, and we
Yeah,
recovered 3 grand, right?
we did. We
You
recovered
know,
3 grand out of all. I couldn't believe we found the seller. I started hustling. I was like, somebody buy this
I
business because
completely I completely forgot about that. It could have been well, I guess it couldn't have been it just could have been worse, right? And we
yeah,
could have put 30 grand into it or 50 grand into it.
yeah. I think it was
Um
12. It was 12 all in or something.
so I wasn't sure if we put 8 grand in. I wasn't sure if we lost 5 grand or 8 grand. I guess we probably lost 8 grand. No.
Yeah, I think it was probably 8. I'll have to look back. It
Well,
may
that's
have
fine.
been. Yeah, I'll have to look back. I don't know if I even have that anymore,
Well, that
but
was a fun deal. I would have had it gone well, we would have split the profits, right? I think that's how we
oh
had it.
yeah, I that
That
was
was our structure.
a lopsided deal that definitely benefited me. You were a good man. So,
It's fine.
and
Well, I don't think we share. You put your labor in. I think I took the capital risk.
yeah,
I
no,
completely forgot about that. It was not even. That's really funny. So
yeah,
yeah,
bring
we
up
did it.
some.
So you didn't. Okay, you did an Amazon deal, and then what?
Yeah, well, I'll just say you handled that so well too. There was never one moment of it was kind of like, well, this happens in business, Alex. You did great. Then I thought, you know what? That was such an experience. I've got to find a product that's differentiated from what everyone else is doing. And so I joined this program at BYU called the Crocker Fellowship. And that program founded a company called Owlet, and they really, really focus on finding a new innovation in a new market that really hasn't been touched with that innovation before. And so you can see I flip totally the other way. And that's great because you find this product market fit, usually in theory, without having to spend a lot of money on the business side. Obviously, you will on the engineering side because the requirement is that it has to be an IoT company or Internet of Things company like Ring Doorbell or whatever. And so we started surveying pool owners and found that the pool owners' number one problem was that they struggled to keep their chemicals in balance in their water. And it was actually a disaster. Equipment was breaking, it was costing thousands of dollars to replace. People were testing with super outdated methods, and their water would turn green. And then you had scenarios where I'd go to a public pool and it was so out of balance that like any health department in the world would shut them down. And it was almost dangerous, for people. And we saw there were a few competitors kind of jumping in. There were some existing automated solutions, but they were just so bad. Like they would read a value and then the next day it would be so off because of just how bad the technology was from what the true value was. And so people didn't know how to take care of their pool. So we decided to jump in and we built a reagent based water monitoring system. And it has been 5 years of building and it's been a pretty crazy ride. So, yep, that's what we've been doing. It's called Amano and it's been a fun time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So 5 years. Like I mentioned, one of the reasons that I run this podcast is to help share people's stories that have great energy and resolve and that kind of keep going. And that's a good example of somebody to keep going. 5 years developing this product. Um, so a few things. You've done a really good job at building your network and connecting with people to help you and to guide you. You've raised money. Like, what kind of networking? How do you see networking generally? How do you see relationship building?
Yeah, good question. I don't know if I have any great wisdom on that topic as far as how I see it. Um, I think it's probably some of it is natural. I mean, I'm just super interested. I think even when we met, I'm super interested. I think for me was learning what have others done that worked. You know, I think that's awesome. And trying to get feedback from people that have done it before um, is super, super helpful. I mean, dude, they can help you avoid some kind of challenge that you're going to face. Like, man, that's awesome. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's maybe some of the
So,
benefit of it.
no, that's great. So you're curious, you're interested in other people. We actually met in a coaching program for with your aunt Deanna Murphy
Yeah, she's
that
great.
the Clifton Strengths Finder, right? So you're putting yourself out there. I know that you at least historically, would go to a lot of events.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't do that as much anymore. But I absolutely have. And I think that every single college student should. I think you should go and talk to as many people as you possibly can. Ask them for feedback, get to know people. I came to Utah with nothing, meaning no one. I knew you, but no network of people here. And I'd encourage any college student, go to any event, meet as many people as you possibly can, reach out to people on LinkedIn. Like that's what I just reach out to random founders of companies that should not talk to you, and ask them questions and get to know them. That's what I did, and you go to every event you can. Um, but what I would say is that I've gone to networking events, and sometimes they're very transactional, and it's just weird. And I don't want anything to do with that. I think there's a big difference between trying to genuinely get to know someone and learn from their experience. And when you're in college, you're in a pivotal time where you're open or should be open to learning, and you should be open to acting on that information. And you can learn a lot and be really blessed with a lot of people here in Utah that I think will be happy to meet with you and help you avoid some of the pitfalls. But try not to make it transactional. I just think that that's weird. Be a real
Yeah.
person.
So
Yes.
expecting, yeah, I love it. Being open that people will help you.
Totally.
And you say like, well, I don't know if I'm that great of a networker. From the outside in, you've done a great job. Like multiple times, like, oh, I met your friend, this person, or oh, I just had lunch with this guy who worked for another company. I'm like, wait, how are you coming up so much? This is amazing. Like these people, it was really impressive. I was always impressed with how you did that. So it sounds like, so what is normal to you? Oh yeah, reach out to people on LinkedIn, reach out to founders, go to these events, talk to people, get them to visit with you. That's not the norm. And I think it's a really good lesson for people, that, to accelerate your growth and your learning, by asking people to spend time with you.
Yeah, man. I'd say most people will take a meeting. They want to help people out. Seriously, like a lot of founders in Utah that have built great companies want to help people out. And if you come to them as a college student, it's likely that they'll meet with you. So, um, just go for it, man. It's a little nerve wracking, but I just do it, and you'll be glad you did, because they'll have a lot to share with you. So, been very grateful for it.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know, twice in the last week, I've met people who, I guess it's in, let's say 8 days because it was Wednesday, but I've met people who are in the middle of building a business. They're not, it's slow. They still haven't found traction. They're still, working on, things in a small team or solo. And I always, really feel that it's important to emphasize that the difficulty they're feeling is very real, because
Mm-hmm.
it is very difficult. You're past that a bit. You're still, you're still figuring out and pivoting a little bit, but you've had some revenue, you've had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
traction in terms of, business success, and you're going after a big market. And the bigger market you go after, if you were mowing lawns, then you could have been successful 4 years and 363 days ago,
You'd hope so, man.
but when you're
I don't know with
building
these
a
gas
complicated
prices.
device,
Yeah.
yeah, when you're building a complicated device like that, um, anyways, it's just really hard. And for anybody else like that's listening to this interview, um, if you're in the middle of that thing, even for me, I had even built a nice business before, and I was like already a winner because we built it, we grew revenue, we sold it. It's like, hey, I won, I'm a winner. Where it's like, whoa, but then the next thing you're like totally losing, or it takes long, or it's a lot harder. I really had to work to separate my ego with my current project, and my self-worth with my current project. And it's like, hey, Dale, I'm a capable entrepreneur, and I will apply my skill to a problem, and it happens to be this problem or that problem, but this thing that I'm applying my skill to has some complexities that I don't have total control over. And if I stick with it for 50 years and never let go, then that might be some of my fault and I should probably reassess things.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing it and it fails, that's probably, I don't need to feel like a failure for that. I can feel like a winner while losing, you know? Because if you don't, you're going to have, I think, a really hard time emotionally and just as an entrepreneur if you're totally clued into that. So this is your first business. It's not your first business. It's your first main business. You've raised
Yeah.
money, everything else like that. How do you handle the mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I just to be honest, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's just times where I've like laid in bed and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is all over. It's been 3 years and I have to figure out next month how to pay 15 people and I've got nothing. Like that is a really stressful spot to be in, like it's whether it's that or yeah, whatever it is, it's not necessarily the specific challenge. It's just that, sometimes things are complex and they're hard and really, really lonely. Um, and this is gonna sound like some bad feedback, but I happen to meet with a guy who really, really respect, and he's a guy he wants no one to know who he is, but he's done really well. And I had met with him about this time, and he said, Alex, one of the things I've learned is just basically stare into the problem. And Elon has said this. I since later found a quote somewhere that he says, and just say, so what? So what that happens. Okay, so what? I can't pay him. All right, I gotta let him go. What does that do? Can I still buy a few months of time before? Or okay, so what? I go bankrupt. And now that being said, I'm like I started this out of college. Like that's a different thing than I've got a house and stuff. But that's a more of a hard time. But as far as the day to day, I think a few things, and I mentioned this before, but you kind of have to, entrepreneurs, we have this challenge. We have a few challenges. One of them is we have to have high expectations. We have to have high expectations of employees or where the company can go. And you actually do have to be optimistic. You always, as Jensen Huang said, he said, the only skill I have is that something good's always around the corner in my mind. And that keeps you going. And on the flip side, you have to lower your expectations. Otherwise, it's like a puppy dog or a greenie on their mission. Everything's great, and then something hard happens and you want to quit. You kind of have to figure out how to stabilize things and say, you know what, you're going to wake up every day and say, you know what, this is hard. This is going to be hard. And accept that at a base level. I was cold calling this week, and before I started cold calling, I said, okay, the expectation is everyone rejects me. I had like 5 companies that were, pretty interested, and that was impressive. But if like for example, maybe it took me 10 companies to get there. On company 9, I was expecting all of them to be so excited all the time about everything. It's much likely chance I'm not going to get to that 10th call. So anyway, it's just kind of I would say one of the biggest things for me has just been maybe adjusting expectations, because that allows you to do, I think, hard things. And I remember I served a mission for my church, and this is something that's just come to mind, but my mission president always said, we accept that things are hard. We don't act like they're not hard. We accept it and we can do it, but don't act like it's not hard. So I agree with you. The challenges, whatever they are real. And especially if you're like going at it alone, you have no one to motivate you every day. That can be pretty challenging. So anyways, those are just the things that I think of. Probably adjusting expectations has been critical. Most likely outcome, the device doesn't work. That's what's going to happen today. Most likely outcome, people aren't going to be that interested. And then put in the work, and then you'll be surprised when it does work, and that'll help. So.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I'm also happy to hear that starting in a really bad product segment, letterboards led to the
A
other
robotics
side of the
company.
spectrum doing a robotics company.
Who would have
depending
thought?
on how this goes, I'm either going to take credit or you can blame me, but just don't tell me that.
From letterboards to robots.
Only tell me if I can take credit. Yeah. When you have your big exit, you'll pay for lunch.
Yeah, well, I'll still owe you the 8K. So.
No, you don't owe me the 8 grand anymore. Um, uh, that's funny. Okay, the I love that. Yeah, the paradox, if that's what it's called, right? Of keeping really high expectations, really big, but then being happy with the small wins and uh and the lower expectations. How do you decide how do you decide what to focus on? And you tell me what, maybe even what question. I'm going to ask two questions. You can answer the one that you're most excited about. How do you decide what to focus on? How do you plan? Like what kind of weekly rhythms, monthly, daily, weekly rhythms? Do you have any rhythms that help you kind of center in to focus on what's most important? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. What are my goals? Do I have this thing? What am I going to work on now? And then people can get lost. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, no, good question. Part of that, I don't know if I do that very well, if I'm going to be honest. I try to come in every day or every week and say, like, what's the problem? And that's what we solve. And in my role, that could be sales, it could be engineering, it could be manufacturing, it could be some partnership, and that's just what I do. That week, it's like,
Yep.
in theory, what's the bottleneck, I guess, and that's what we try to solve. Um, and the that's okay. What you'd hope though, and you're gonna what I always wanted was that someday our company would be operating like a metronome, just tick tock, and everything goes smoothly. And I don't know if that actually exists for a founder. It doesn't mean that the company can't, but the founder kind of knows where the oil's leaking, regardless of if the car looked really nice on the road. And so um, the challenge of what I just mentioned, you kind of want to do that for a little bit, but the goal is actually to get out of that and to solve for problems that in the future. And I actually I hope that we were able to transition to that. But I can't solve for problems in 3 years or even 6 months if I'm struggling with something that won't even get me to 6 months. And so those are things that I think we're transitioning more as you solve more near term problems that affect your business tomorrow, which everyone will say, well, that's bad. And it's like, okay, well, if I don't do that though, well, we're in a tough spot. Hopefully, we can get to stuff that is better down the line. So I'm always thinking about down the line, and we're always trying to figure out, should we focus on that? But most near term is, how does it do in this environment or this environment or this environment? What do we need to validate this to show that we can move that way? A bunch of iterative tests. So I don't have a good system. Personally, I just wake up, I read my scriptures, and then I go and run or I work out. And that's really good for clearing the head. But that's about it. So everything else in my life is fairly chaotic outside of Sundays. So unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, as I look at the best of the best routine that I have on a daily perspective, it's like personal study, scripture study, something good. This morning, even on a run, I actually was like, I listened to a good, like, kind of gospel related talk, and I realized, dang, the person that I was messaging with yesterday, that there was kind of an issue. I'm like, I was loving towards them. They were very much like a victim and totally took advantage of us and whatever. But I'm like, the feeling that I had towards them was really negative. So it was good for
Yeah.
me daily to have that, like, reminder of. So I think that, and then running, and that's like 80% of my routine. So I think that you're killing it. That's awesome. What about what about on a weekly basis? Do you do any sort of, like, well, weekly you say, hey, come in and I work on the biggest problem? Is that kind of your Monday morning type plan?
Yeah, I think so. And that can be uncomfortable too. What I've learned, and I think this is kind of a hot take. I think that a lot of times founders and ops guys will always clash. And you happen to be both, Dale. So you're kind of a unique brain. But um, from a founder perspective, it can be even a little terrifying to be like, okay, now I have to switch and become a really good fundraiser. And last week I had to be a really good engineering testing developer, or and that can be pretty mentally exhausting because you have to go from, it's not, sometimes the problems are like 8 layers deep and not 4 layers deep. And that's pretty challenging because it requires a lot of mental work to go down, 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 down. And then I have to jump back up and then do the same thing over in a different thing. And you're like, well, I'm not a developer, I'm not an engineer or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much, I think, what ends up happening. And that's another thing about adjusting expectations, just saying, okay, well, this is the job. It's not like I was like, well, I'm the business guy, so I don't have to do that. Nope. No, you're the founder. Therefore, you do have to do that. And that's your job. But that is what I
Mm-hmm.
usually will come in and say, okay, where are we at in engineering? Where are we at in, whether that's fundraising or sales? And then that's kind of what we optimize for. I do think, though, in the future, we will be able to operate some parts of the business more like a metronome, and there will be more planning, and there will be less surprises. When you're debugging, you're usually debugging because you have a bug because you didn't anticipate it. And so that's kind of sometimes how business is. There's bugs you didn't anticipate, whether that's on the product or something else. And somehow that always, a lot of time, that ends up being the thing I solve. And in the future, I think we'll get some help there, but that's just how it is for today. So.
Yeah, love it. What do you do to stay confident?
Hmm. It's probably one of my weaknesses, honestly. Um, I don't know. I'd say optimistic. Well, I'll tell you what. People want the device. They want it, and so um, that's just something that you always. And I think any startup, if they're doing really hard technical stuff, you got to come out of the cave sometimes and go remind yourself and go talk to real customers because they'll remind you they really want something like this. And you go back in and you're like, okay, I can handle another 3 months of this, or 6 months of this, or 9 months of this. And I know about month 8, it's going to get really, really hard. So at month 8, I'm going up for another day for air. I'm going to go talk to customers and then see that they're excited about it, and it'll keep me going. So that'd probably be it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That, and I think the
love it.
number 2 thing that helps is just knowing when people that I admire like believe in me, or back the company. Like, it does a lot, actually. That's what I've noticed. It just does a lot to um, increase, I think, confidence. Is when I know that somebody, for me, when you see these guys out there and they'll raise $50 million and then it goes out overnight. Um, when we raise money, it's like these are individuals that I know, and I have like a relationship with, and when they do that to me, like that's a great trust, and I feel some accountability to that, and
Mm-hmm.
so that, I think, is some other things that keep me going. So.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. What advice do you have for if you could go back 10 years, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
Good question. I don't know if I'm at people will ask, like, if you had to do this all over again, would you? And I don't know if I have an answer, and that's okay. That's an okay spot to be in. It's a very hard what we've done. It's a very hard problem to solve. It has taken years of failing. I mean, we have failed and failed and failed. Plenty of other companies have tried this and they didn't make it, and they didn't figure it out. And so it's been fascinating to watch. If I could tell myself one thing, I think I'd tell myself, like, don't just keep solving problems. This is going to be hard, and you're going to have to solve 1,000 of them, and you're going to be wrong 1,000 times. But you're going to figure it out. Like, it's all right. There is something about just keep swinging, just keep going, just keep swimming. Like, the challenge for us could be some really complex chemical related hardware robot thing. For someone else, it could be something else. But if you keep working the problem, hopefully eventually figures itself out. I think one thing that I'd probably change is I might introduce, in our case, product testing much earlier than we did. And I think I'd follow, well, that's part of our secret sauce, but just what Elon Musk has done is bring manufacturing in house. That'll allow you to go a lot faster. I think those two things would have probably a much larger impact on our company than anything else that we could do. So probably that.
I love it. Cool. It's been really awesome to spend time with you, Alex, and we're excited to follow along. Where can people kind of check in and follow along? Are you active on LinkedIn, for example?
I wouldn't say I'm active, but I do get on there, and if I get a message or something, I'll get on there. So just find me. Yeah, Alex Thompson. It's Amano, Amano.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you for spending the time today.
Thanks, man.